Well, Jim, we're talking about elite teams, and you asked me a question about Lizzo's favorite team. That would be the Minnesota Vikings, and I didn't answer it. So I'm going to have
But
you
but
answer
wait, I'm
your own
asking.
question.
Well, before you even get to that, I'm
Okay.
asking you. Do you know which player slid into her DMs?
Do I know which player did into
Yeah, like
Lizzo?
she sang about
I
in
do
the
not.
song. Yeah, which
No, I
Viking?
don't. No. Do you?
Me? No, I'm still trying to figure it out. So I
Okay.
figure
All right.
you being the all knowing, I figured you might know. So
I, I wish I knew. I wish I knew. I'd applaud. I'd applaud that that Minnesota Viking. Yes, I would. She's so talented. I love Lizzo. So tell me though, Lizzo's talented. Lizzo's a winner. Lizzo has reached the top. How about the Vikings though? Are the Vikings
yeah,
that? Because I know a lot of people. You think about Kirk Cousins. He has become like a polarizing quarterback. That name like draws some type of response from people. People feel some kind of way about Kirk Cousins, positively or negatively. Usually negative. Can you be an elite team with Kirk Cousins as your quarterback?
they are doing it to this point. Like you said to me earlier, your record says what you are. I'm paraphrasing what you said to me. I hope I'm not
Mm-hmm.
misquoting you. But your
No,
record
you got
says
it.
what you are, and they are 5-1. They're beating all the teams that line up in front of them. So from my standpoint, um, this is fascinating to me because you're doing it with a first-time head coach in Kevin O'Connell, um, who was never a play caller, and you've got obviously Kirk Cousins, who, as you say, is one of the more polarizing figures, and yet they just continue to win games quietly. And I'm actually going out there this weekend to see them play the Cardinals because I want to get a look at them up close. Um, and if they win that game, will we be talking about them, or will they just be another team that kind of takes a backseat to the play of the New York clubs and that excitement, or the Eagles and the Cowboys and all of that, or the Bills and Chiefs? As a head coach, as you know this, having been around this league for so long, if head coaches love anything, it's playing well and not having people talk about them because they can always use that with their players when they play the respect game and all that sort of
Yeah,
stuff.
that's right.
So I'm intrigued by this club to see what it really is. I know this, having talked to some coaches who interviewed for that job. Normally when you have an opening at a head coach position, that team is bad and it's going to take time to turn it around. Coaches I talked to said, no, this is a club you can step in with and win right away. And to this point, they are proving that.
Yeah, they're so interesting to me, and I guess the reason, just a guess, okay? You say why aren't? Great question. Why is no one talking about the Vikings? And the reason I'm not talking about the Vikings, I guess, is I'm not as surprised by it. One, by the
Mm,
start, and two, and not because I think they're great. I feel like I've seen a lot of, and Vikings fans can either back me up on this or refute me on this. I feel like I've seen a lot of Minnesota teams that get off to great starts or really impressive starts, and then at some point, yeah, they just kind of fizzle. They fizzle away. They haven't been to the Super Bowl in a long time. They haven't been to the Super Bowl since the '70s, right? So it's been a while. It's been a grip. But they've had a lot of good teams. They've had a lot of exciting offenses. And you look at their offense now. I love Justin Jefferson, and I love, we just saw Dalvin Cook on that touchdown run against Miami. Just so many elements to their offense that are intriguing. But I guess, Jim, what it comes down to is I don't think it's sustainable. I don't think the Vikings, when it really matters, will come through.
Kevin O'Connell
Maybe,
thanks you for that. He thanks you for that.
okay, but you got to be able to do this. This is what and I know it's a technique that coaches have used. But if I'm a player sitting there in a meeting and the coach says, hey guys, everybody's talking about how we can't get it done. Everybody's talking about how we never come through. I got Google too, coach. And so I need to know, okay, you can't say it and then we don't do it. It's not effective. People, you know why people say it? Because it's true. I just said they haven't been to the Super Bowl since Bud Grant was the head coach. So you don't talk to me about, oh, these people say, and the outsiders believe. No, the outsiders are right. The Vikings historically have not come through, and they've had some really fantastic offenses and defenses.
Look, I'm going to go back to what Ashley Nicole said. Live in the present, Michael. Live in the present.
Okay.
Don't live in the past. That's last year. That's the past, right?
Okay. So right now, what? Okay, let me ask you. Okay, let me in the present.
Put that schedule back up. Put that schedule back up.
Yeah, put the schedule up, and as the schedule comes up, you tell me, Hall of Fame voter Jim Trotter, why is the present for the Vikings different than what I've seen in the last 2, 3, 4 years?
I would make this argument.
Why is this going to be different?
Right. I would make this argument to you. We all talk about it's a quarterback-driven league. It's an offense-driven league, right? They now have a head coach who understands offense. Zimmer, I say Don Zimmer. Jesus, how bad is that? I know. How bad is that? I said Don Zimmer.
It's a disadvantage of having a lot of knowledge. You've seen a lot in a lot of sports. So you get, it happens. It happens.
It definitely happens.
If your brain, I'm going to spin this into a positive. If your brain were empty, you would have had Mike Zimmer, boom, just like that. But you got all kinds of stuff in that brain of yours.
And I know Mike Zimmer well, too, so that's sad. But when you look at Mike Zimmer, obviously defensive-minded coach, didn't like throwing the ball. He was someone some would say he's sort of a dinosaur in terms of his philosophy. I'm not here to argue right or wrong. I'm just saying we knew what he wanted to do was play great defense and run the football, limit the opportunities for turnovers, those sorts of things. In Kevin O'Connell, you have a young offensive-minded head coach who spent last couple of years under Sean McVay, who saw how they utilized Cooper Kupp in terms of making him a Triple Crown winner last year at the receiver position. He comes in, he starts implementing some of those things in terms of utilizing Justin Jefferson and the rest of that receiving core. And so the other thing when I was out there during training camp, Michael, and this is real too, is that guys were tight under Zimmer because that was Zimmer's personality, right? And I'm not, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but guys were tight because he was tight. He was intense. In O'Connell, you have a guy who has a certain intensity about him, but also has a certain, I'm not even sure how to put it into words. Laid back is not the right phrase. Yeah. It's not necessarily laid back. Yeah, it's not as tense. Guys can be themselves more. He has certain things he demands of them, but in a way that's not abrasive, if you will, right? Yeah. And so if I were to say there is any reason that it could be different this year, it is that change sort of in culture and mindset within the organization with Kevin O'Connell there, both from a philosophical standpoint on the offensive side of the ball, and then in terms of an overall culture, in terms of the organization, that culture in terms of people can be a little more free, if you will, can be themselves. And typically when players are allowed to be themselves, they play better.
All right, that's a good argument. That's a really good argument. And I want to point out, I'll tell you after we take a little break. But I got a stat for you. I got a stat.
I figured as much.
What's the thought? I wouldn't say a stat. I just have a thought for you. Hey, thanks for watching Brother from Another on YouTube. Make sure you hit subscribe before you leave, and be sure to watch us 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time on Peacock. Appreciate you.